I wish I had accessed the Baltimore Afro-American and had done what this gentleman had done, but I've not. I am a DC native. When my senators departed the premises, I went up the road and I've bled orange ever since. I am a Baltimore Oriole, not for 50, 60 years now. So my orientation was on Baltimore, and like the gentleman before me, I am a bit of a rookie, and I had no idea what I would find about the Baltimore Black Sox, much less that they won the championship in the 1 year that the American Negro League was in existence in 1929. Can I have to? Okay. Barzun may have said it best when he said, if we want to understand America, we really need to understand baseball. And Frederick Douglass said it more directly. If we want to, in his emancipation speech in Boston in 1820, Frederick Douglass said, if we want to understand the destiny of America, we need to understand the destiny of African Americans. Before the Baltimore Black Sox became so prominent, they first played in the Eastern Colored League. The Eastern Colored League was created when the first Negro League splintered and several teams left, and became the impetus for the creation of the ECL. And the ECL was dominated by the Hilldale team. And it was only until 1929, when the ECL collapsed, no longer existed, and several of the teams decided, well, let's create a new league, the American Negro League, and this is the year that the Baltimore Black Sox won the championship. They had, in 1929, as many of you probably know, what was known as the $1 million infield. I don't think white players, if you could take an infield in white baseball in that time, were probably in aggregate making $1 million. But in any event, the media said that the Black Sox infield was so good that if they were white, they would be making $1 million. Only one member of that infield is in the Hall of Fame, and he got in 2006. I went and looked at his plaque today, and ironically, maybe someone did it deliberately, it is right next to Cal Ripken's plaque. Judd Wilson had three others in the infield with him. Richard Lunday, who was known as Sir Richard or King Richard, like Judd Wilson, had an amazing batting average for the Baltimore Black Sox, had an over 300 batting average for his lifetime. And many of these individuals in the infield and the outfield played in exhibition games, many of which were against white players, and they, to a man, except Warfield, who we'll get to in a minute, who was their player manager, to a man, they had well over 300 averages in their exhibition games. And many of these also played in the Cuban Winter League and also had batting averages well over 300. Warfield was aging at the time, was the player manager in 1929 and batted slightly less than 300. This was basically the end of his playing career. And Oliver Ghost, which was his nickname, Marcel, excuse me, I jumped ahead. I can't go back. There we go. Oliver Marcel was called the Fiery Creole, came from New Orleans. He and Lundy were a part of a trade that went to the Black Sox in the preseason of 1929 and probably resulted in the team capturing the pennant of the league that existed for 1 year. This was basically Marcel's last year. I think he played 4 games in 1930. What happened was during the Cuban Winter League, he and Warfield had a dispute over a gambling match that they'd been in, and Warfield bit off part of Marcel's nose, and Marcel was so embarrassed by not having part of his nose any longer that he only played 4 games in 1930 and then essentially disappeared off the map. None of these, Lundy or Marcel or Dixon, who played in the outfield, none of them are yet in the Hall of Fame. Dixon, called Rep Dixon, was once again another amazing player on this team, hit over 300, I think. Maybe Dixon, who 3 or 4 times, some dispute, also hit over 400. Once we now have the integration of the statistics, presumably Dixon, along with Josh Gibson, will be way up there. Pete Washington was also an outfielder for this team, hit over 300 lifetime, was a great addition to the team. And I've only put up one pitcher, Lamont Yoakley. I think he was 17-8 in the 1929 season, also not in the Hall of Fame. After the 29, the league collapsed after 1 season. The Black Sox continued for a couple of years playing independent ball. I noticed the SABR committee in the last couple of days has recognized that the 30 and 31 teams of the Black Sox will be considered by SABR statistically. Eventually, the baseball in Baltimore, at least black baseball, became the elites, not elites, and the Baltimore elites pretty much dominated black baseball from 1938 onwards. What fascinated me, and I cast no aspersions on anyone, but I wondered in 2006, as we all know, 17 individuals, black individuals, went into the Hall of Fame that year. The way that, as I understand it, and I'm not criticizing anyone, there may be someone here in the room who was involved in this process, so I'm not casting aspersions. I'm just raising questions that occurred to me. 2006, there was this huge number of players that then got reduced to a lower number, then got reduced to 39. And then a group of people met and voted one by one, as I understand it, on the 39, and you had to get 75% of the vote. And I think a lot of people thought, isn't going to be a lot of people who are going to get 75%. Well, in fact, 17 of 39 did. So everyone was, what a surprise. And this is a wonderful 17-member addition to the Hall of Fame. Some of the 1929 Baltimore Black Sox were among those 39 and were among the 22 who didn't make it to the Hall of Fame. Some may have been, I don't know, I haven't looked at the stats. Some may have been very close to the 75% mark. What strikes me as odd, and I have no answer, and maybe some of you do, is unlike white players who, when they reach the end of their career, or for that matter now, black major leaguers, when they reach the end of their career, they're on the Hall of Fame ballot, I think for something like 10 years. And if you get a certain percent, you remain on the ballot for a while. You have to get to the magic percentage to get in, and many don't. But they have year after year after year opportunity to get into the Hall. The question that comes up in my mind is, what about the 22 of the 39? Why haven't they gotten year after year after year consideration? Manny Minoso got in, Buck O'Neill got in, but nobody else, as I understand it, of the 22, and there may have been others that when the number got reduced to 39, who also have not had another opportunity. Bernard McKenna wrote a great book called The Baltimore Black Sox. And at the end of his book, he says, and after pretty extensive study of the Baltimore Black Sox, why didn't Lamont Yoakley, the pitcher, why didn't Lundy, why didn't Oliver Marcel, why didn't Rap Dixon, why are these people not in the Hall of Fame? The Pittsburgh Courier survey of 1952, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, also said that the shortstop on the 1929 Baltimore Black Sox was, I think it was John McGraw. Yeah. John McGraw said, of all the players that he had seen in his lifetime, the only one who was a greater player than the 1929 Black Sox shortstop was Honus Wagner. Everybody else, in McGraw's opinion, paled in comparison, not in the Hall of Fame. And as I understand it, I hope I'm wrong, year after year after year, unlike regular major league players, is not considered for the Hall of Fame. This gentleman started out talking about kind of how he got into this. And let me end with, because I have, and I got the copy, thank you to Leslie and Cindy for putting the copyright up so I don't get sued by Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. I'm a lawyer. I started out right after, well, actually during law school. I went to Mississippi in 1966, and you can imagine what Mississippi was like in 66. Changed my whole life, came back home, became a civil rights lawyer for 50 some years, and then I'd had enough. It's time to retire, Fitzpatrick. And the thing that has now fascinated me, and that is the history of Black baseball, the history of now my native town, Baltimore. In Baltimore, we had residential housing segregation by law. City council literally passed ordinances decreeing segregation. The governor, I won't even describe how he described African Americans, but you can imagine. And this was maybe, my kids sometimes ask me, Dad, were you alive when Abraham Lincoln was alive? No, but I was, and probably in my parents' eyes, at the time of the 1929 Baltimore Black Sox. So I'm an old guy, I go way back. We need to pass this on to our children. I look at this audience, most of us are bald, most of us are old. I see a few youngsters in this audience, but not many. We need to pass this history on to the next generation. All they know is Jackie. That's it. They know nothing of the history of Josh Gibson. How's that going to be received? Not by us. We embrace that. It's cool. Josh is #1 now. But is that going to be embraced by the younger generation? Are they going to understand this history? Are they going to embrace this history? So enough proselytizing on my part. Thank you for listening.
Any questions?
No questions.
Just to clarify on the Hall of Fame year-by-year thing. So Negro League players are still voted on. It's a every 3-year era committee, and the next one will be next year. So it's every 3 years, but as of right now, it's pre-1980 is all lumped together. So we're gonna have a ballot next year that maybe has Dave Parker and Cannonball Dick Redding and Bill Dolan and Ken Boyer and Louis Tiant and whatever. So it's gonna be a really interesting thing how that goes, but it's every 3 years, and next year will be the next year of that.
It's just for whatever it's worth. Looking at this and, what do I know? Not very much. But looking at this, it just doesn't seem right that some of these guys came so close. And maybe every 3 years they'll be considered. Just doesn't seem right to me, but one guy's opinion. Thank you.
Any other questions? Right, great.